In the not-too-distant future, mankind starts exploring space in search of new habitats and the potential discovery of sentient life. This leads to the establishment of colonies on Mars and the Moon. Major Roy works as an astronaut, which has been his dream since he was a little kid. He is presently undergoing a psychological assessment in order to accept his next mission. He assures the physicians that he is alright and maintains a great poker face. But because his profession consumes the majority of his time, he is unable to avoid thinking about the fact that his wife Eve has left him. The goal of today's expedition is to install a robotic arm at one of the several space antennas used by Earth. Roy ascends a very tall ladder without showing any signs of concern. But things rapidly turn dangerous when a weird light starts flashing. A portion of the antenna suddenly explodes due to a power surge, and several astronauts start to drop to their deaths. Roy instantly searches for the power switch to turn it off, but as he does so, another explosion hits him, sending him to the ground as well, unexpectedly. He maintains a cool demeanor. Once he gets sufficiently near to Earth, he opens his parachute, enabling a safe landing. Later at home, Roy thinks he should be feeling something after such an unlikely survival, but he only keeps remembering Eve telling him he has a self-destructive side. He also watches the news and learns that electrical storms have been wreaking havoc across the globe. Sometime later, the higher-ups from Spacecom call Roy for a top-secret meeting because they're very impressed by his ability to keep calm in the worst situations, plus the fact he has no family to hold him back. They show him spectrogram images of Neptune full of cosmic ray bursts, which are causing the electrical surges. The Lemur project is brought up, a name Roy's familiar with because the commander behind that mission had been his father Clifford. It was the first manned expedition to the outer solar system, which began 29 years ago. But 16 years into the mission, the ship disappeared and all data was lost. Deep space missions were halted after that. As far as they know, the crew was dead. However, the power surges make them think Clifford may still be alive. The surges seem to be caused by an antimatter reaction, which was the material that fueled the mission. This may cause a potentially unstoppable chain reaction that could threaten the stability of the entire solar system and destroy all life in it. Clifford could eventually send a message back after hearing his father's voice. Therefore, Spacecom wants Roy to go to Mars and contact him. Roy accepts the task while knowing he has little choice and that they are only exploiting him, since he is keeping a poker face while hearing about his father. Afterward, Roy begins getting ready for the trip and decides to watch the last video his father ever sent him, which was recorded right before he reached Neptune. The man left when Roy was still 16 and his message is mostly rambling about the possibility of finding life, but at least he ends it with an "I love you, son." At that moment, Roy is approached by Pruitt, an old friend of his father's that will also go on this mission. Pruitt wants to know if Roy is doing well emotionally, and when Roy explains he still thinks his dad is dead, Pruitt points out they need to be ready for the possibility that Clifford is hiding from them the night before the mission. Roy tries to record a message for Eve, but in the end, he doesn't know what to say and doesn't record anything for the next psych evaluation. He admits he hasn't slept much, but he still feels ready, so his trip is approved. Since the mission is completely secret, Roy will fly commercially to the Moon as a cover, and then reach Mars from there. The journey is very calm, but all passengers are reminded that the Moon is borderless, and many mining zones are disputed territories in a state of war. When they make it to the colony, Roy notices it's become a commercial recreation and thinks Clifford would have hated it all. Roy and Pruitt take the train to the Spacecom base, and Pruitt explains nobody here knows about their mission either. The launch pad is on the other side of no man's land, so they'll have armed personnel to protect them. Roy wonders what the last time Pruitt was talked to his dad, and Pruitt confesses it had been a fight. Since Pruitt had thought of retiring, Clifford called him a traitor. Pruitt wonders if Roy is worried, but Roy admits he isn't. He thinks his dad is a hero, and is disgusted by how Spacecom wants to paint him as the villain. Pruitt and Roy leave the base after being assigned to rovers, and are met by troops. But as soon as they enter an open space, pirates attack them and start firing. Roy's suit is instantly perforated as the two accompanying rovers fall, but he successfully fixes it right away. In order to cause several pirates to crash, Roy drives his rover through some of the base's buildings, while also shooting the driver of the vehicle. The surviving pirates then strike Roy's rover with theirs, causing him to tumble into a crater while he attempts to shoot at them. Roy pretends he's lost control of the vehicle, and once the pirates are gone, he begins driving again, getting to escape through the darkness. The base launches some missiles to kill the pirates once they're far enough. When they finally make it to the launch pad, Pruitt confesses he was hurt during the attack, and won't be able to go to Mars. Roy knows he should be upset over losing his safety blanket, but continues to bottle up his emotions. Before Roy leaves, Pruitt gives him a drive with confidential information, confessing it'll put Roy in grave danger. Because their higher-ups don't trust him, Roy gets in the rocket to Mars, where he meets the crew and Captain Tanner, who inform him Pruitt was taken for emergency surgery. This trip will last 19 days, and nobody in this crew knows Roy's real mission. Mood stabilizers are distributed, but Roy hides in his suit instead of taking it. When he has a moment alone, he checks Pruitt's drive, which shows that Spacecom received an SOS signal from the Lemur project crew that indicated Clifford intentionally disabled all external communications. If the mission isn't successful in contacting Clifford, then they must destroy the Lemur project and Clifford himself to stop the surges. Roy wonders what happened to his dad, and if he really lost control. Remembering the fact Clifford had promised him they could work someday, yet it never happened. Sometime later, they receive a distress call from a space station, and Tanner feels obliged to help them, as protocol dictates. Roy wants to concentrate on his own mission, but his protests are ignored. Since the co-pilot is scared, Roy volunteers to go with Tanner to the space station, where they split to cover more ground. Roy finds some scratches on the walls, and when he reunites with Tanner, he finds him floating and shaking. When he comes closer, Roy discovers there's a baboon feeding on Tanner. The animal attacks as soon as it sees Roy, but he fights it and manages to shake it off by tasting it. Then a second baboon shows up. So Roy grabs Tanner and takes him into another room before closing the door hatch. Roy tries to seal Tanner's helmet with some duct tape, but soon he must return to the door to keep it closed, because the baboon is trying to open it. He finds the pressure hatch and releases it, making the baboons explode. Moments later, Roy brings Tanner back into their ship. But no matter how hard the doctors work, Tanner doesn't survive, and his body is thrown into space. Roy does a second psychological examination later, while everyone is asleep, and explains why Tanner died without displaying any feelings. Roy acknowledges, when the computer voice probes for more information, that he can identify with the baboon's fury because his father abandoned him as a child. He finds only hurt if he digs under the wrath, which prevents him from entering into relationships. Roy takes over as co-pilot when the captain has finished his duty. When they finally arrive at Mars, they experience a power surge, forcing them to land manually rather than automatically. The pilot is too scared to react, so Roy takes over the controls and lands the ship himself, promising his partner he won't report him to Spacecom. The crew makes it to the ESA research station, where Roy meets Director Helen. She doesn't know about the secret mission either, so she only gets to escort him to the building where the other employees are working in confidence. Roy is given a very cold pre-written message to read, promising Clifford they're here to help, and that they need any data he may have. Unfortunately, they don't get any replies and the technicians decide to try again later. Roy spends some time in the comfort room, where he tries to decide if he hopes to find his dad or wants to be free from him. When the time comes to send another message, Roy drops the script they gave him and begins talking from the heart. He mentions childhood memories and the fact he's become an astronaut too, expressing his wish to see his father again. Roy waits to see what happens and notices the technicians getting excited around the comms, meaning they got an answer. However, when Roy asks to hear the message, the higher-ups don't give him access to it and announce he'll be sent back to Earth, because his personal connection makes him unfit for the mission. On his way out, Roy notices a crew is getting ready to travel, but they ignore his questions. Before going to Earth, they put Roy through another psych evaluation, but his desperation and anger finally make him crack and mess with his biorhythms. Thus he's sent back to the comfort room for the time being. Sometime later, Helen visits Roy to get some answers. At first, Roy tries to keep the secret, but Helen changes his mind by explaining she was born here on Mars, and that her parents died in the Lima project. The higher-ups made her prepare a rocket with nuclear munitions, which will be leaving for Neptune soon, and she wants to know why. Roy tells her the little he knows, and Helen responds by sharing a video they received some time ago. It turns out Clifford is indeed alive, and screams can be heard behind him in the recording. Clifford explains his crew started to boycott the mission because they wanted to go home, so he had no choice but to kill them all. Spacecom made Clifford a hero in the public eye to cover it all. Roy wants to confront his father. Thus Helen sneaks him out of the base in a rover and drops him by a sewer entrance, so he can gain access to the rocket in secret. After a few minutes spent under dirty water, Roy reaches the launch pad and manages to climb into the rocket right before it takes off. The crew immediately detects his presence and Roy tries to explain he isn't a threat, but the base sends orders for him to be neutralized. Two astronauts go after him, but at that moment the rocket gains speed and the force pushes the astronaut against the wall, killing her. The second astronaut fights Roy and the captain tries to shoot him, but he fails and hits the oxygen tanks instead. Roy attempts to aid the captain by putting a mask on him, as the air becomes toxic, but it's too late. Both astronauts have passed away. The bodies are thrown out of the rocket and Roy sends one last message to the base, confirming he'll finish the mission before he turns off all comms. Roy will have to spend the entire trip, which will take 79 days alone with his remorse. He connects a feeding tube directly to his stomach and electrodes on his body. To stimulate his muscles, Roy tries to keep himself busy by thinking of Eve and his dad. However, he makes the mistake of watching Eve's last message when he confessed she felt like she didn't know him because he was always away. He also watches videos of the time his dad was still sane and hopeful. All these clips make his mood tank, and Roy keeps dreaming of his childhood, his mother, his dad, and Eve. Roy used to wish he could be alone, but the loneliness on the ship is breaking his sanity as well, and he realizes how many people he's let down all these years and how selfish he's been. By the time he finally approaches Neptune, Roy is on the edge of losing it, but he manages to put himself together for the mission. He takes a shuttle to fly to the Lima station, but suddenly he gets hit by another power surge and the shuttle begins failing. Roy tries to dock to no avail, and trying to contact his father gets him no answers. He has no choice but to leave the pod and spacewalk into the Lima station. Inside, Roy finds the crew's bodies floating around and an old music video playing on a screen. He also finds his dad's room, where he can see all the signs of obsession. with finding life in space. Roy goes further inside and begins programming the explosive when Clifford finally finds him. And while Roy keeps his poker face, the sadness is still clear in his eyes. Clifford explains he's been trying to stop the surge, which was caused by the cruise boycott. The captain must go down with the ship. And Clifford considers this his home. He has no interest in returning to Earth. And he admits to never caring about his family. Roy tells him he still loves him, and reaches out to grab his hands, which Clifford accepts after some hesitation, while Roy helps his dad get into his suit. Clifford says he's proud of his son for traveling all the way here, and wonders if they could have made a better team, because his crew checked the data. And when they found no signs of life, they immediately gave up. Roy points out this isn't a failure, because now they know they are all they got. They activate the bomb to explode in 3 hours and leave the station. But as soon as they take it outside, Clifford tries to throw himself into space. Roy holds onto their anchoring rope to keep him close. But Clifford begs for freedom, and Roy decides to grant him this last wish. The rope is unhooked, and as Clifford floats away into the abyss, Roy finally allows himself to have a breakdown. He floats for a while, wondering if he should give up too. But then he realizes he still has one more chance. Using his suit's propellers, Roy returns to the Lima station and removes a panel door, which he uses to protect himself from the asteroids in order to cross Neptune's rings. As he makes his way back to the rocket, Roy remembers the last words his father told him while he downloaded the research data. Clifford said that by obsessing so much on finding life, he ignored all the beauty on the planet's surfaces. Roy hits the side of the rocket, and after rolling around for a bit, he manages to hold on to the railing and get back inside. He doesn't have enough fuel left, so he waits for Lima to explode and uses the shockwave to propel the rocket. Many days later, Roy lands safely on Earth, and a group of soldiers immediately rescue him, assuring him the Lima data arrived safely as well. During his next psych evaluation, Roy says he's been sleeping well, and that he's aware of his surroundings. Now he's also very aware of his loved ones. So he's finally ready to commit and reunite with Eve to start things over. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos.